Crowley, and we bring you Spotlight on Nonprofits today. Spotlight on Nonprofits is sponsored by NJM Insurance. But today I've got a special treat. I'm joined by Michelle Napell, who is the CFO of Jewish Family and Children's Services. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
Good seeing you again.
Always good to see you.
So what we'd like to do is understand your nonprofit, what you do as a leader. So to help us start, can you give a little background about yourself and Jewish Family and Children's Services?
Sure. So I like to say in my past life I was an attorney. So I practiced for 3 whole years, much to the dismay of my family. But I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to stay at home for quite a few years raising my children, but always was volunteering because I can't just sit and do nothing. And then I literally fell into my first job, which was the executive director for a not-for-profit that was based in Israel that dealt with victims of terror. And I was the executive director for the entire United States, and I would travel around and basically raise money and educate people about the trauma that victims faced all the time. And it's interesting because I found JFCS in Mercer County through my job at One Family. JFCS has an incredible program that's called JCYF, which is a youth philanthropy program. And every year the kids from 8th grade to 12th grade focus on a different area of philanthropy. And in the 12th grade year, they deal with Jewish-based charities. And my organization, One Family, was a grantee of this program. And I was sitting at one of the events, it's a speed philanthropy round, and I really was not planning on going that day. Like, I had done enough of these things. I was like, I'll send somebody else, but I love doing this program. And I sat down, and Linda Mizell, who's my predecessor, sat down next to me, and she said, I'm retiring in June. Do you know who's somebody who might want my job? And I was like, oh, maybe I want your job. And she said, you really might want my job? And I said, I think I might want your job. And it really happened very quickly, and so I've been fortunate enough to be here for 5 years. I just started my 6th year in June.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I know there's a national organization, Jewish Family and Children's Services. How do you fit into that national organization?
So there's not really a national organization of Jewish Family and Children's Services. There are Jewish Family and Children's Services all across the country. Independently.
Oh,
We're all our
okay.
own 501c3, but there's a network, so it's an umbrella organization called the Network of Jewish Human Services Associations. So they act as a conduit to all the Jewish social service organizations across the country, get us together, keep us informed as to what's going on, provide training for us and things like that, but it's not an overseer of our
like United Way where there's chapters.
Correct. We're not a chapter at all. We're independent.
So in looking at your website, I was taken back a little bit, or taken pleasantly, when I think of organizations, they think of taking care of people.
Right.
But your organization talks about strengthening individuals and families by empowering people to care for themselves. Can you tell me about that?
So I think that that's really a social worker kind of attitude, that you're giving people empowerment to really take care of themselves. And most of our staff at Jewish Family and Children's Services are actually licensed social workers. So they take that to heart. And it's not about just giving handouts and helping people, but really giving them the tools to overcome what they're doing at the same time as giving them what they need, basic needs. So whether it's providing mental health and really giving them the tools to move on, or geriatric care and giving them assessments and showing them what they can be doing, that's really what we're doing. So we're really giving them the tools as well as what they need.
So that's really a much more of a hands-on approach, creating a plan with the individual, as opposed to bringing a service to them, just here it is, and going back.
Right. I mean, obviously there's a little of both. I mean, there are certain people or certain limitations that we have just because of our staffing and whatever is going on, that we just are doing that. But our real core values is to make a difference and to make a change in their lives.
So, a funny story. So I knew Linda Mizell, as you know, and I'm Catholic. And about 10 years ago, I ran into a family situation. And I happened to have called Linda, thinking she could refer me to maybe a Catholic organization. Mm-hmm. And it happened to be with my wife's father, who had Alzheimer's and was going through a difficult time. And what she said was, we can take care of that. We're not just particularly focused on Jewish people. And that really took me back, because I didn't think of that when I heard about Jewish and Family and Children's Services. So you've expanded that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So I think it's always been that we are here to take care of the entire community. What we do is we do things through a Jewish lens, and all that really means is it's just with care and kindness. And we are really here for the entire community. And when I first started here, I used to say, I just want to climb up to a rooftop and scream, JFCS, we're not just for Jewish people, because that really isn't what we're about. We're really about helping the entire community. I
would think, though, that the name may prevent that from being scene.
It for sure does. But just like Catholic Charities, right? They'll help anybody. It's just it happens to be how they started and where their base is. So if you notice, you keep on saying Jewish Family and Children Services. I usually say JFCS
Right.
because it's just, again, it takes away that feeling that it's just for Jewish people, because I would have to say that so many of the people, or almost the majority of the people that we're actually helping, are not Jewish at all.
Well, that's what I gathered
Right.
when I used to talk
Yeah.
to Linda, and then you and I had conversations
Correct.
too. You talk about seeing it through a Jewish lens. Help me understand that means.
So Judaism is really, this part of Judaism, it's all about tzedakah and caring for the community. So that's really what we're doing. It's the want and the need and the desire to take care of the community in which you're living, because you want to make that community a better place for everybody, and therefore you're making it better for yourself. So that's really what we're doing. So, we're helping the entire community. We're in Trenton, we're in Hightstown, in East Windsor, wherever we can be and help somebody, that's what we're going to be. It does not matter what the religion is.
So that brings up another question. How far the geographical reach of what you do?
So-
Because JFCS doesn't really say where it works within.
So it's JFCS of Greater Mercer.
Oh, it is, okay.
It's of Greater Mercer. So we take care of the entire Mercer County, and we also edge into Bucks County as well.
And so were you to go north into Somerset and Middlesex, is there another organization?
There is. There are, yes. So all around us, there are different JFSs. So there are about, I think there are 7 in New Jersey, and basically it's done by county. Some of them are combined, but ours is Mercer and Bucks.
So in looking again at your website, I was interested in some of the programs you work on. 2 jumped to me. One is the teen program. Can you talk about your teen program? Because to me, that's a group that really won't reach out when they need to reach out, and
Right.
you have to reach out to them.
Right, so that actually is the only program that is completely a Jewish program. So we do 2 programs. One is a mentoring program where the 11th and 12th graders are really discussing different things that are happening currently, whether it's bullying or social anxiety or social media. They're going and they're learning different skills and activities to take to the younger kids to have these conversations. So it's a real mentoring program. The other one was the one that I just mentioned, which was JCYF, which is kind of my favorite program because that's what brought me here, which teaches children to be philanthropists, which is so important because you really learn the reason you want to give and why you should give. And they expose them to all different types of charities, whether it's local, national, international, whether it's cultural. So it really gives them a broad sense of the different things that they can do.
And do you find that they take that to heart and carry it with them as they grow?
They do, and that's what's really amazing because we give out alumni awards every year, and we follow the kids into college and see the differences that they make, and they really do. They take it to heart, and they love it. They really get a good sense of what it means to be a giver, which is so important in today's day and age.
It is. It really is. And today's culture sometimes passes over that.
It does. It does.
So the other program that interested me was the Alliance for Women.
So this is, I'm not supposed to have lots of favorites, but I do have lots of favorites. So the Women's Alliance is actually amazing how it just came to pass. It was somebody in the community who basically said, I want to do something, I want to volunteer, what can I do? And at that time, I was crafting in my mind what was going to be next for JFCS, and I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but it was the mobile food truck.
Right.
And so it was really just the right place at the right time. And she said, I love it, women want to feed people, I want to empower women to make this decision, to give to where they want to give and really get involved in something and have it sustainable. So we started it in 2019. So we've had 3 events so far. We have about 147 women, and we've raised about $250,000.
Wow. And so that money they've raised goes back into...
Goes directly to the food truck and to the pantries.
Wow. Now, there's a lot of programs that are for women. That seems to be a group. Do you have a similar program for men?
So it's so interesting. We don't. And it's something that we're actually thinking about because some of the men, and actually we don't discriminate. We actually have a couple of men who are members of the Women's Alliance.
All right, there you go.
We do. And when we do our events, obviously our last 2 had been virtual. We see people's husbands or significant others like on camera with them too because we have great events, so they like to take part in it as well.
So let me switch gears for a little bit and talk about running a nonprofit. As you know, I have a background in both the business side and the nonprofit side. To me, they're the same. To me, they're the exact same. But as a CEO, what kind of obstacles do you find that are both challenging and personally valuable that you can overcome in leading this organization?
It's a really good question. I was thinking about the challenges that I've had, and I think that most business leaders have a challenge when they come in after somebody who had been in this position for as many years as Linda Mizell, my predecessor. She had been here for 18 years, like you had been at the chamber for that long. So to come in and be a new face and to take over without totally, turning things topsy-turvy is a little tough. And when I first started, everybody's like, oh, you have such big shoes to wear and to fill. And I kept on saying, I'm wearing different shoes. Yeah. So I think that with any business, whether it's not-for-profit or corporate, when you come in after a leader who's been there for a long time, there are always challenges. Obviously, COVID was a huge challenge. But other than that, for me personally, it's figuring out what's next. Right, I tend to make these big announcements at our annual meeting, like this is what's new this year. So to keep that constantly going, but to also see what's necessary in the community. I don't want to just come up with something because it sounds good on paper, unless it's really necessary, and just growing the business really in the proper way and in the proper manner. So those are challenges that you have in both places.
So we're going to talk about some of the initiatives you brought in the second half of the show. Talk about some of the successes that go to your heart, that you said, well, you know what? I go home and because of that, I'm just able to sleep tonight.
Well, I happen to be really lucky that I absolutely love what I do, and I'm one of the few people who actually loves to come to work every day because I am seeing just things changing and impacting people's lives. But when we first were thinking about launching the mobile food truck, we did test runs, and we just did pop-up pantries in a variety of places because we wanted to bring it out into the community. We work a lot with Better Beginnings, which is in Hightstown. It's a preschool. And so we set up this. We basically brought our pantry on the road and we set it up in their big community room, and the parents would come in after school and shop, and the kids we would entertain them. So I love to hang out with kids, and so I would bring these kids over to this little table where we had snacks and we had coloring and we had vegetables dancing and all that, and I was over there just having the best time. And then I walked away because I had to do something else, and as this little girl was leaving, she tugged on my dress, and I went down to her level and she gave me a big hug and gave me the picture and said, thank you for giving me my food for dinner. And I was like, I still am like welling up and getting good. It's things like that just, when you know that you're really making a true difference in somebody's life every day, everything is impactful and just makes you want to get up and go to work.
What's the biggest obstacle you face as the leader of an organization like JFCS?
Besides funding? Besides funding?
Yeah, besides funding.
Which is always something that you're worried about as a not-for-profit, being able to keep on doing what you're doing. Like I previously mentioned, thinking of new things while staying in your lane is difficult, which is why actually we're doing a strategic plan this year, which I'm thrilled about, because we're not the same organization we were 3 years from now, and we're not where we're going to be 3 years from now. So we were fortunate enough to get funding from PACF and the Bunbury Fund, so we're very excited about that. Yeah, I think it's just keeping it going. Every day is different. Every quarter is different. Everything brings you a different challenge. And, things that keep me up at night are, keeping the mobile food truck filled, providing enough mental health, making sure that the seniors are taken care of while keeping my staff happy. So,
which is very important in this role.
Which is super important. Yeah. And that's really, to be a cheerleader for everybody, and but to also, I think it's really important to empower them. I'm not a micromanager. It's not something that I've ever been. And I think it's so important to let people grow into their roles. And I love seeing that, the younger generation really just grow and bloom.
So we're going to take a break here and hear a little bit from NJM, and we'll be back with Michelle Napell and JFCS. Welcome back. I'm Peter Crowley, your host for Spotlight on Nonprofits, and I'm here with Michelle Napell from JFCS. Michelle, the last 2 years have been trying for a lot of organizations. I think nonprofits have had a more difficult time. How did you face the COVID epidemic? What did you do to change? And how has that changed how JFCS operates?
So the one thing I can say is that I could not be prouder of how fast we, and everybody's gonna laugh when I say pivot because that's my least favorite word, but pivoted to accomplish what we needed to. I mean, honestly, by March 16th, we were completely remote. We had revamped our food distributions. We had increased the home deliveries of our Meals on Wheels. I mean, we hit the ground running like nobody's business.
Had you planned for that situation that might have occurred?
No, because who could have thought that something like this would have really occurred? I will tell you that the week prior was our big gala, and it was already, COVID was being talked about, so I think we dodged a bullet there because we got it in just under the gun. But we really everybody was so ready to help, no matter what their position was in the agency. It was just they all wanted to make it succeed. And personally, I was doing all this while I was battling COVID.
Really?
Yeah. So
without being having any injections to prevent it.
Well, it was March.
You
March
caught it
2020.
really
I was
early.
like, so we were doing
Wow.
all of this, and I wasn't feeling very well, and really had no idea that it was COVID at the time. But it was really for us. It was all hands on deck, and everybody made it work. And so, we're still, coming out from under what really happened. But fortunately, a lot of our services we could do remotely. But what was incredible was our food delivery services and distributions, they never stopped. I mean, that staff, they never left the office. They were there every single day, where everybody else was, huddled in their houses. They were flying down Route 1 because there was not a car on the road to make sure that, people were getting the services that they needed, the actual food.
So is the organization today different than it was 2 years ago?
Absolutely.
And will it stay that way?
So it's interesting. It changed. It had to change, and it obviously had to do different things. So before COVID, I'm talking a lot about the food, but this was really such a big issue then. We had a choice pantry, and it was you went in, you shopped the pantry, you bought what you wanted, and that was the model that we were using for our mobile truck, which, by the way, we had launched in February.
Yeah, I want to talk about the mobile
Yeah, we'll
truck
talk
too.
about that in a second. So we had to change different things. So instead of having things that were choice, we had pre-packed things. Instead of delivering our Meals on Wheels, twice a week, we were doing it more often. Instead of having the pantry open, the first 2 weeks of the month and the last 2 weeks of the month, it was now open every single day. So those were things that changed. Telehealth also is huge. We have an incredible staff of mental health clinicians, and they're doing, now we're doing a hybrid, so you can choose if you want to come in person or stay virtual, but they're doing all of that virtually. Our geriatric, care managers were also doing things virtually. It was very interesting teaching our senior population how to FaceTime and to get online and to be able to, do those things. We have Holocaust survivors that were so incredibly isolated that we actually provided iPads for them and taught them how to FaceTime with children and to join Zoom groups because isolation was such a huge thing. And again, those things are continuing because some people are just more comfortable online.
Right.
Some of our support groups are still online because it's easier for people to not have to come to an office. So a lot of those things we learned and grew, and we realized that they could be successful. So some of those things we want to keep, but it's nice to see people in person.
I agree. So I know you're a woman with big ideas, and I know the mobile food pantry was a big opportunity.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how that happened and really what it is? Because I think people don't really know about it. You talk about a mobile food pantry, but what you've done is really unique.
So I realized that we had this food pantry at our office at 707 Alexander Road, and I was like, where are the people, right? We had about 50 families a month, which is not terrible, but I was like, there's so much more need out there, where are they? And then we started talking, and we realized that transportation is not fantastic in Mercer County, and people couldn't get to not only our food pantry, but lots of food pantries. So I said, we need to bring the food pantry to them. So that's where the idea was born, to make it more convenient to bring an entire food truck, which is really a mobile food pantry, to different communities that can't get to food pantries. So we launched it in literally February of 2019, 2020, and we had budgeted to, take it out 1 or 2 times a week, and we were going to kind of build up. And I had referred to a pop-up pantry that we had done in Hightstown. So we were identifying different partners throughout the community that we would bring this truck to, and to see if people would actually come. And so we had identified partners, and we figured, okay, we're good. We're going to take it out once or twice a week, and so we did that literally one time, and then COVID hit. And now in 2022, we are going out at least 6 times a week, and we now have 2 trucks.
Wow.
And we have
Great growth.
36 partners that we're working with, and we're adding 2 more. So the partners we go to at least once a month, and that's what we've been doing, and we're all over Mercer County. And it's not funny, but I had originally thought that the truck wasn't going to go into Trenton because there were so many providers in Trenton and people could walk and everything else. Now 40% of our stops are in Trenton.
Wow.
Because there's still, it doesn't matter how many pantries there are, there's such a huge need.
So how has that impacted your traditional food and pantry?
So it really hasn't, because people are still coming to the pantry. I mean, I think we're seeing about 900 families a month now, and some of them are coming, and that's just the mobile food pantry, so we still have about 75 to 100 families coming to the pantry. When they come to the pantry, they get more of a variety. I'm not gonna lie. On the food truck now, they're getting a pre-bagged package of food, but it still includes things that were important to us, like fruits and vegetables, chicken or fish, eggs, cheese. I mean, it's really a robust. But if they come to the pantry, if they wanted one cereal versus another cereal, or if we get a delivery from a local farm, which we get a lot of during the summer, they have the choice of those vegetables. So people are still coming to the pantry, and they can come as often as they want.
Can people order from the mobile pantry? Can I call and say, gee, I know you're coming out to my house? No.
No, so we don't go to individual houses. We actually go to
locations.
So we'll go to schools, we'll go to low-income senior houses, we'll go to churches. We work with tasks, so when they're doing a meal there, the truck will be outside. That's our model.
Interesting. So again, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. Running a nonprofit is a very personal experience. I know that from history. I know you've known that. You talked about that one situation with the young lady and grabbed you and said, thank you for feeding me. I think the viewers would love to understand other sort of moments like that, because there's so much that you do as a nonprofit leader that people don't realize. And I think those kind of stories bring home how important nonprofits are and the leadership of nonprofits are to our community. Could you talk about a couple of those?
So I think it's interesting. I think, a not-for-profit is a business. So there's, the financials, there's the staffing, there's operationals that, businesses typically deal with. When that gets overwhelming as a not-for-profit executive, you're lucky because you can leave the office and then actually see what you're doing and see the impact that you're making. So I say that when I'm having a bad day, I just look on the calendar of what's going on at the agency that day, and I'm like, oh, there's a food distribution, I'm going to do that. Or we work with Holocaust survivors in Mercer County, and they do social events once a month, and I'm like, oh, it's a Cafe Europa, I'm going to go hang out with some of the Holocaust survivors. So I think that those things really recharge your battery as a not-for-profit executive, because you need it. It's not easy. You're not dealing with easy issues. We're seeing so much more trauma and stress and depression and anxiety, and I hear it all. I mean, I'm not helping the clients, but I'm hearing it from my executive team, I'm hearing it from the clinicians, I'm hearing it from the geriatricians. It's just, it's hard, it's heartbreaking. So you just want a little lift every once in a while, and seeing a kid pack a backpack to give to another child is priceless. Seeing going to a farm to glean, to get the extra food that we know that we're going to be giving to other people is amazing. And for me, it's being with the people. It's getting on the truck, and we laughed that there was one day that I was down in Trenton, and I think that I had 50 people say God bless you, and I was like, well, if God is blessing me this many times, it's a really good day for me. But it's a really good day. But
can you save those God blesses for later on?
I know, right? It's like I want to bank them. But it's that. It's the impact that you're making, and it's the smiles that you're seeing on somebody's face. It's watching a Holocaust survivor who is listening to music from their past and just clapping along. It's a child who's thanking you for your food. It's knowing that we're helping somebody who's in a crisis with a family member that doesn't know where to turn to, and knowing that you made a difference. Those are the things that you get as a not-for-profit leader.
So we recently had an organization called Attitudes in Reverse on, Kurt Baker, and they talk about mental illness and suicides. You have outreach programs, especially among the teens. I had asked them this question, I'll ask you. Has the social media impact made your job more difficult because the students that you deal with are having a more difficult time?
So I don't know if it's just social media that's doing it. I think it's the world in general that's really impacting children. I think that COVID, the isolation, The anxiety of not knowing what's next, what their future is going to bring is very difficult. I will say that the clinicians are definitely seeing more and more children. We're doing support groups at our office in Hightstown for high school students, middle school children, and even kids as young as 5 years old. I mean, they're really feeling not just the social media, but just the world around them. I mean, social media isn't good for anybody. Whether you're a teen or an adult, you're constantly looking at it and becoming obsessed with it. I think it's a tough world that we're living in, but I think that one of the things that COVID did was really brought mental health to the forefront of conversations, which is priceless. You know, people aren't embarrassed to say it. I mean, it's funny, I listened to, at one of our youth programs, somebody was saying, yeah, well, my therapist said this and my therapist said that. And I'm like, they're so open talking about the fact that they have issues and that they can talk to other people and they know that help is there, that I think it's super important.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the conversations we had in a prior show was that students aren't afraid to say,
No.
I'm seeing, when I was a kid, man, you just didn't want, it was an issue. You didn't say anything. You had in the corner.
Yeah.
But now students are much more open, they're much more willing to talk, and services like yours that you bring are much more valuable too, I think.
They are, and we're lucky that we're able to do it. We really are.
So a question that always comes up to a busy executive, how do you relax? How does Michelle Napell relax?
How does Michelle? I spin. That's a huge relaxer for me. I exercise. That's really important to me. I'm not going to say that I don't partake in a cocktail or two sometimes. You know what? I think it's like anybody. You just have to take the time. And it's funny. I'm constantly preaching self-care, self-care, self-care. I don't really follow that so well. I mean, I'm definitely on my emails way too early and way too late. But I can't relax, Peter. I'm just like you. It's not how I'm built. But when I'm doing something that I love so much, it doesn't feel like it's really work. It's a passion.
So we're going to come to the end of the program in a couple of minutes, and I have to ask this question. You're an educated woman. You're a lawyer. You could have done anything you want in the business world, yet you chose a profession that's overly stressed as the leader, doesn't pay the great numbers, and you manage lots of people. Why did you do that?
That's a really good question. You know what? I think that my heart always led me in this direction. I think that it's a special type of person that's in a not-for-profit world. It could be sad, it could be lonely. But it's like I said, it fills my heart. It really does. It gives me joy that I can't get in a corporate world. You know, when I'm able to see what I'm doing and feel it and see the impact and see that it makes it. I can't imagine doing anything else. I really and truly can't. I tried.
Right.
But it always brought me back here. And I think part of it is because I was brought up in a family that did a lot of volunteering and always was very charitable. So I was brought up thinking like this is just what you do, and I'm just lucky enough that I get to do it as a profession.
So we're coming to the end of the show. Clearly, you've done a great job with JFCS. Can you tell our viewers how to reach you and how to make a possible donation if they feel it's important?
So we have two unbelievable events that are coming up in October. One is the Women's Alliance. So our event is actually happening October 27th. We have a fantastic speaker, Jennifer Armstrong, who's wonderful, and she's an author. So we're very excited about that. But for all of you cyclists or non-cyclists out there, we have our second annual Wheels for Meals bike ride. So it starts at Mercer County Community College, and we have a 3-mile, a 10-mile, a 25, and a 50-mile for real cyclists. And it should be a fantastic event, so I invite all of you to join us there. But you can always make just a donation at jfcsonline.org. And honestly, we'd love to have anybody come down and volunteer. We have tons of volunteer opportunities, from working at a Cafe Europa to packing our bags to be distributed around the county, or to riding on the truck and making those distributions. So
Michelle,
lots of ways.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
I'm Peter Crowley, and this is Spotlight on Nonprofits, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.